Well, questions about the 338-06, the 338 Federal, the 35 Whelen, the 350 Remington Magnum. What is going on? Well, we are going to counter that with a whole bunch of questions about the new 21 Sharp. Boy, are people hot and excited about this one. Let's find out what's going on this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast. Hey guys, I'm always crowing about my sponsor, Alaska Knives, Knives of Alaska, and Diamond Blade Knives, but this time I'm going to talk about Knives of Alaska because they just sent me a new model, and I like this knife. They call it the Badger, and it's kind of designed for young hunters. See this extra long little groove up and underneath here, and the way that handle is shaped? It's designed to keep their fingers well away from the cutting edge of that blade, and they've got kind of like that little finger groove up underneath there that helps with that. And on top of it, they've got this stippling or this gimping or jimping, they call it, little grooves in the top that you can put your finger on for fine work, detail work. And all of that is great for instructing a young hunter on the proper use of a knife. And you've got the no slip grip kind of synthetic handle on it. And it just looks to me like a great size knife for that first deer, or even birds or anything else you want to use it on. They call it the Badger. You might want to look at it. It's D2 steel, a D2 tool steel, and I think it's a great knife for anybody. But if you've got a young hunter who's just getting into the game, boy, I think they would appreciate a knife like this. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We've got some questions from patrons here about the medium bores, the 338s and the 35s. This is Andrew, and he said, hey, given if you're a hand loader, would you have personal preferences between the 338-06, the 35 Whelen, and the 350 Remington Magnum, optimizing your rifle for length and twist, knowing that it was what you would use as your default big game rifle out to 350 yards or so? And is it worth even debating or taking into account hand loads of a 338 Federal? Well, Andrew, it is not worth agonizing over any of those. But I suspect that the 350 Remington Magnum would be my pick. I like the short action idea, and I do like that larger caliber. But that said, I have had no issues over the years dropping bulls with a 338 Federal and using a 185 grain Barnes TSX bullet in that. Also, good success with a 325 Winchester Super Magnum or Short Magnum, the 300 SAUM, and the 270 Winchester, to be honest. It is more about good bullets and where you park them. I have yet to hear of a 35 Whelen shooter who regretted having that rifle, so it's not a short action, but boy, is it ever a performer. And then again, you didn't mention the 358 Winchester. That's another great option. Now, the 358 Winchester is the 308 Winchester necked up to 35. So it's about like the 35 Whelen, which is just the 30-06 necked up to 35. And they're just all great choices. I can't say that I would necessarily say one's going to be more effective than the other because I've just found that they all are. So really, you just need to decide for yourself, and I would base it on your preferences for short action versus standard length action, or which rifle you're likely to get a hold of. But I do like that 35 Remington Magnum. If you're a hand loader, you're going to have real trouble finding ammunition for this. It's pretty close to being an obsolete cartridge. It never got the kind of popularity I think it should have because it's so darned effective. Figure anything the 35 Whelen can do, this thing can do in a short action. But boy, you're going to have trouble finding even brass for it, I would think. All right, now we have another patron here, Austin, and he's from Washington State. He says, I recently found your podcast from the shorts somewhere along the internet, and I love the content. I find it very useful and informative. I drive a bunch to work to and from every day, and I'm able to listen to about 2.5 to 3 hours of your podcasts a day. I'm catching up quickly. Anyhow, I'm going on an elk hunt next week, and my X-Bolt 7 Mags scope is having issues. And with enough time to work and getting out deer hunting, I think I'm going to have to bring along my 280 AI. I'm just a little concerned that I have a rifle shooting well with 140 grain Nosler AccuBonds. It's also shooting good with a Nosler 140 grain ballistic tips. I primarily use that 280 AI as a deer rifle, but I'm thinking it's going to have to be my elk gun this time. So I'm curious, effective range with that grain bullet and the bullet type. A little bit nervous, so what do you think? Well, I think, Austin, that the 140 grain Barnes X bullets in my 280 AI have taken out bull elk as far as 450 yards away. And I don't think that 600 yards would be too far for the AccuBond, but I never recommend people take those long shots. But the bullet's certainly up to it. Now, I would think that the ballistic tip, unless you're getting a tight behind the shoulder shot, broadside on the chest, that one offers some potential problems. It is not a controlled expansion bullet, so there's a possibility that on an elk it could fail to penetrate deeply enough to really be effective. So I would stay away from that. Fine on deer, and it could work just darn well on a broadside shot behind the shoulder. But you hit that shoulder, I think you're better off with the AccuBond. That would be my pick of those two. All right, good luck with that, Austin. Now, Hog Boy is asking something about 243 Winchester, it looks like. Hey there, feller. He called me feller. That's different. So I recently picked up a Ruger American Go Wild Compact in 243 Winchester for a price I couldn't pass up. The guy I got it from said it shoots sub-MOA, and boy, he was not lying. I can cover 3 shots with a dime at 75 yards. I can't imagine another 25 yards would be much different. I tend to do a lot of walking during my midday deer hunts. With a 16-inch barrel and a compact stock, this Ruger is a good hiking rifle. It really likes the Hornady Superformance 75 grain VMAX. It's not uncommon for us to get whitetail bucks weighing between 250 and 300 pounds. Do you think a 75 grain bullet is heavy enough for this? And what do you think about shooting big whitetail with a VMAX, being it's a varmint bullet? Also, if you do think that this is sufficient, what about shot placement? I tend to like the high shoulder shot, but with a heavier copper bullet. I don't know if a 75 grain varmint bullet is good enough for a high shoulder shot. Well, Hog Boy, I think you're right to be a little bit suspicious on that one. The 75 grain VMAX is designed for varmints. Think groundhogs, rock chucks, prairie dogs, coyotes, that sort of thing. Not ideal for whitetail. Now, it can work. I've actually used it myself to good effect, doing just what you said, tight behind the shoulder. Gets right in there and explodes and makes a lot of hemorrhaging very quickly. But there's always that potential of hitting the major muscle groups and bones and not getting inside. This is why varmint bullets are frowned upon by most state fish and game agencies. Some don't even allow them. So I would advise against it. An expert can certainly try it and make it work. I've seen guys take neck shots with these crazy light varmint bullets and just lights out. But you've always got that potential for failure. So I would go with a stouter bullet on that one. I'm sure if you checked with your rifle, shot a different bunch of loads, say go with an 80 to 85 grain bullet. If it's a controlled expansion like the copper bullets, cutting edge and hammers and Barnes and maybe the Hornady CX and all of these, a well-designed copper bullet opens up beautifully and really penetrates well. And then 80 grains is probably more than enough. I've even used 75 grain Barnes bullets on whitetails with a 6mm. So you're going to be doing okay there. But I wouldn't hesitate to step it up a little bit. You want a good, dependable bullet that's going to penetrate adequately. So I think you're on the right track to be suspicious of that VMAX. All right. Now we have got one of these questions is left over from our last podcast. We went a little bit long and couldn't get Bryce in. Told him we would. Here it is. Ron, I'm kind of a beginning hunter. I'm 19 and I've hunted or been around hunting all my life. I do mostly small game and bird hunting, But me and one of my buddies shoot a deer or two every year just to have one on hand. I'm curious what you do with all of the meat. You seem to go on a lot of hunts. And for a farm boy like me who only hunts every now and then for meat to eat every now and then, it's just hard for me to understand, especially with a big game African hunt. My family has cattle, and sometimes we raise meat birds, so that's what I eat mostly. So maybe you just eat mostly game meat. I'm just curious. How can you go through so much meat? Oh, Bryce, those are good questions. And they're legit questions, too. And of course, I can't go to Africa and shoot 5 or 6 animals the size of a kudu and oryx and things like they're the size of a small elk, 500 to 700 pounds. I can't eat all that meat and can't bring it all home. It's not even legal to bring raw meat home from over there. But their system is different from ours. Over there, the meat belongs to the landowner and or the tribes living in the area or something, but it never goes to waste. You hunt over there, and man, people are lined up and ready to take that meat. And the private landowner is even allowed to sell it on the open market. You can go into grocery stores and buy oryx and kudu and ostrich and all the native game animals. It's a wonderful system because it keeps wild native game on the land where it belongs because people are utilizing it. It has value. So it's protected, it flourishes, the whole system works beautifully. Over here, with all the deer and pronghorn and elk and whatnot that we shoot, this meat does not go to waste either because, yes, we do mainly eat wild meat. Now, Betsy loves her beefsteaks now and then.
I love them all the time.
And she loves pork, and we don't get a chance to hunt wild pigs all that much, so we're mostly buying the pork that we eat. But by and large, we're eating elk and deer, and the kids eat it, and lots of our friends, so we distribute it and share with everybody, but it doesn't go to waste. So that explains it for me. I hope it makes sense to you, Bryce. Okay.
Can I say something? One of my favorite meats besides beef is mule deer.
Yeah, Betsy really started liking mule deer since she started shooting the meat bucks on the ranch. She does real well at that. So every year we get 2 tags for the ranch. Mine is for a old trophy buck or nothing, so that's why I've only shot 1 in the last 7 years. But Betsy, she always gets the meat buck because she's not fixated on antlers like so many of us are. So she gets a little 4-corn or a 3x3, and we enjoy that meat because we shoot it early. The mule deer season here in our area of Idaho is early, mid-October. And those animals are still not rutting. They're still what I call in their summer habits, where they stick fairly close to a small area and they just feed and eat, and they're not getting all excited yet and full of hormones. And we found that the meat is absolutely delectable, delicious. It doesn't have any strong flavor to it or anything. So since discovering that, Betsy's really high on mule deer. She now likes it better than elk, if you can imagine such a thing. But we pretty much eat it all. Elk, moose, pronghorn. Really like pronghorn. So anyone who hunts has to like meat or have someone in the family who does. And if you think game meat is gamey, I would say it's only because someone has mistreated it. If you treat game carcasses the way we do commercial meats, keep it clean and cool and all the rest of it, there's no reason why it should taste gamey. Now, there is sometimes a fat issue, especially with whitetails. The fat seems to have a cloying taste to it. It sticks to your mouth and things. I just don't use the fat from whitetails. Elk doesn't seem to have the issues. Moose, same thing. Fat's great there. But get that back fat off of your whitetails, and I think you'll find out that it tastes a lot better. And cook the meat rare to medium rare. Don't overcook it. Way too many people who say, oh, I can't stand venison. When they cook it and share it with me, I go, well, I wouldn't get too excited about this meat myself because it's so overcooked. It's like eating the proverbial hockey puck. So that's the best I can tell you. You really need to work with that leaner meat. I know a lot of people just hate the idea of pink meat, let alone red meat inside. But close your eyes and eat it, and I think you're going to say, whoa, this stuff is really delicious. That's how I did it. I came from an old farm family where everything was well done. Oh, we didn't want to eat raw meat. But boy, once I started shading toward that pinker side, pretty soon it was toward the red side. And if I'm not looking at it thinking, oh, I'm eating a raw animal, it's darn good. It's the taste that tells me, not the look. Okay, let's see. What else have we got here? Joel. Ron, thank you for your great show and dedication to providing valuable information. I normally listen from start to finish, but recently I had your program on late in the evening and I peacefully drifted off to sleep. More endorsements here for my insomnia cure, Ron Spomer Outdoors Insomnia Cure show. That is, Ron, until you rang that bell for the question of the week, while I sat up with a start, confused about the alarm going off until I realized what had just happened. I got a good laugh out of that. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Joel. I'm sorry about waking you up. Warning, if you're using me for falling asleep, set some kind of a switch to shut it off before the bell rings at the end. Okay, Matthew. Hey, Ron, when I lost my dad in 2008, I was deployed to Iraq, and on my return, I inherited my father's firearms. One of them was a .348 Winchester in the Model 71 lever action, also a .30 centerfire Model 1864. I was wondering if you had more information on the .348 uses in history. I would love to see you do a throwback rifle day with some of those older calibers. Well, we will do that, Matt. Right now, I can tell you that the Winchester Model 71 lever-action rifle is considered by most experts to be the smoothest lever-action rifle ever made. And it's essentially the 1886 version of the Winchester that was just tweaked a little bit and perfected, polished to make a special rifle, and they chambered it in one thing only, .348 Winchester. That is a rimmed cartridge. Today it would be equal in power and performance to the .358 Winchester, which is the .308 Winchester case necked up to 35. So in the lever action back when they did it in the 30s, it was in the mid-30s when that thing came out, and they produced it until about the late 50s, if I remember. It was considered a great option for elk in timber, for anyone who liked a lever action. Pretty hard hitting. But again, the .358, just imagine your little .308 cartridge with a .35 caliber bullet on it actually puts out just a little bit more energy than that .348 did in the Model 71. But boy, it had quite a reputation for being one heck of a rifle and a cartridge. But these days, it's just not considered to be a powerhouse. But it's still a good mid-caliber option for elk and heavy cover. Of course, deer, you could use it on too. Interesting story about it. In the making of a movie back in, was this in the 50s or 60s? Jimmy Stewart, the name of the movie was Winchester. Was it called the Winchester 73 or just... Winchester 73. I have never seen this movie. I cannot find the darn thing. I'd love to see it. But at any rate, in this movie, the character Jimmy Stewart is playing has to win a contest by shooting out of the air a flipped coin. It was a gold piece or something. Why somebody would shoot a hole in a gold piece, I don't know. But at any rate, in the movie, they flip this coin in the air, and Jimmy Stewart takes his lever-action Winchester, and he drills it right in the middle and wins this contest. I don't know if it was a turkey shoot or what. The actual coin was actually shot in the air by a trick shooter, and I think it was McGovern, but he was using a Model 71 .348, and I thought it really unusual. Why would a trick shooter standing off camera behind Jimmy Stewart choose that big recoiling rifle instead of a .30-30 or even a little 35 of some kind or something? But he did, and the rifle and the gold coin that was shot are on display, or at least last time I was there, they were on display at the Buffalo Bill, Cody, Wyoming Historical Museum. They've got this firearms museum there that's outstanding. And they have this display case with that whole story in there. You might want to go check it out. That is an interesting little side-by on the 71 model Winchester lever-action rifle. All right, Slim. Ron, I hope you took that in the good humor I meant. I'm not sure which one Slim is talking about, but obviously he and I have been communicating. You and I both know of cartridges introduced with much hype that just died on the vine. I was born in a barn, dirt poor, and lucky enough to be able to work my butt off to make a little money, more than a little, I guess. My father bought his 40-acre farm for $6 an acre in 1926, and he got a Fox double barrel for $26. He grew up in the sticks, but he had to move to town in 1908 to get a job in a refinery, where he met a 14-year-old French girl who he married 6 months later. But the farm called along with the quail hunting. My earliest job was picking up debris behind the mules and the plow. I was trusted shooting with a .22 at age 9, and I shot those big chicken snakes as they tried to eat our chicken chicks out of Dad's pole-mounted birdhouses. Now I pop them with my .22 mag and shot shells. Mum is the word, because I live in a country club. What? Oh, you didn't hear that. Slim lives in a country club, and he's shooting pests in the backyard. No golfing for me, but my wife is happy. I do have 20 acres and sticks for the teaching kids to shoot their Henry rifles. I bought about 25 custom Henrys before Mr. Anthony had to shut that down. Oh, Mr. Anthony, I don't know who that is. The last one I got was the Precision .22 mag. It lives up to its hype. I really envy where you live. Only good game birds we have are quail and dove. Oh, take a shot at a pheasant or a grouse now and then. No, he means I would like to be where you live so I could take a shot at a pheasant or a grouse. I only use 20 gauge, as my dad did, and even geese never knew the difference. Maybe I'll be able to buy a .22 rimfire and ammo cheap from those poor people in California who can't shoot lead bullets. They need to think before voting. I got to meet Reagan, Ford, Carter, Bush, and Bush too. I hope you have a great holiday. Well, that was just kind of a neighborly, friendly letter there telling us all about what Slim is up to. He sounds like an older gentleman who grew up poor, but that used to be kind of a standard in America prior to the middle of the 20th century. Seems like after World War II is when all the money rolled in and people moved from the country to the city, and we became more of an urban population. And boy, has that made a difference in our outlook, in how we live our lives. The old growing up in the sticks, putting meat on the table with your .22 rimfire when you were an 8-year-old kid or so, you don't hear those stories much anymore. It's an era that has passed. Now, here are a whole bunch of folks writing in about the recent video we did introducing the 21 Sharp cartridge, a new rimfire from Winchester. And boy, did people get upset about this. It's funny when these new cartridges come out, how many people just love to get on the comment section and run it down and say how horrible this whole thing is, and they're just trying to take your money. And I have a different take on the whole program, but let's just see what people have to say here. This is Ken. No, this is not Ken. We're not going to read that one. This is Galen. Nope, that's not one either. Not going to read that one. Guys, you have to keep it polite. John, Ron, you goofed on your energy charts. You compared the long rifle at 50 yards versus the Sharp at 60 yards. Still a nice video. Well, that's true, John. We missed that one. Sometimes I will read the wrong line here. I'll miss it by one level or something, but I'm glad you caught that. We did highlight the right ones in the video, but the upshot was the 21 Sharp at 50 yards was right in there with the 50 for energies. It wasn't down by much, but you could see it on the chart. Sorry that I misspoke on that one. Gene says, genius, population disarming legal tactic from California. Make the .22 long rifle illegal in the name of the environmental religion. Well, Gene obviously has some strong opinions here. What he's talking about, or she is talking about, is that California passed a regulation several years ago already, I think. Maybe it's only 2 years ago. But at any rate, you can no longer hunt small game with a .22 long rifle there using lead bullets. They don't care if you use a .22 long rifle or short or anything else, but you can't use lead bullets. Now, there are some copper matrix bullets for the .22. They are just they don't have the performance of the old lead bullets. A traditional bullet in the .22 long rifle is a 40 grain lead solid or a hollow point. Some of the hyper velocity rounds and stuff will use a 32 grain or sometimes even a lighter bullet than that, but they're lead bullets. And of course, lead bullets have been proven to poison California condors, but now also golden eagles, bald eagles, a bunch of scavenging hawks, pretty much any meat-eating bird that finds a carcass and feeds on it. If there are particles of lead in there and it ingests it, boy, it doesn't take but a speck, and that can kill the bird. With the California condor, it's a huge problem because there are not very many of those endangered species. Bald eagles used to be endangered. They're no longer endangered, yet all along they have been feeding on carcasses hunter killed. In fact, about 25 years ago, I was in Yellowstone National Park photographing, and I stopped and visited with one of the rangers. He noted that the elk carcasses on the outside of the boundaries of Yellowstone Park were providing essential forage for bald eagles. He said the population every winter was building and building and building because they had all this good meat from the rib cages and the offal from the hunters when they gutted their elk and left it in the field. So the population was increasing despite being some lead there. However, there have been plenty of bald eagles found to be sickening, dying and dead, and then the necropsies reveal that they died from lead poisoning. So it was kind of a double-edged sword. Overall, however, the eagle population in this country is still increasing, and it's at healthy levels. It's no longer an endangered species. But golden eagles now are increasingly suffering. It's a combination of development across the West in their habitat, but some of this lead poisoning. But at any rate, it's outlawed in California, now Oregon, I think Minnesota, several other states. I think we're going to see this accelerate. And this is why that 21 Sharp was created. It is an option that provides 22 traditional long rifle performance with a copper bullet in a different cartridge. 21 instead of 22. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it kind of becomes one if you're not allowed to hunt anymore with your 22 long rifles. Okay, now Keith says 25 cents per shot versus 5 cents per shot. That's a deal breaker for a plinker or a squirrel gun. Now, see, this is someone saying, well, this 21 Sharps is going to cost too much money, so nobody's going to shoot it. Well, if you want to continue hunting small game in a state like California, you will have to. It's going to cost you more per shot, yes. However, this is just a new cartridge. Maybe the prices will come down. If it ever became as popular as the 22 long rifle, I'm sure it would, because the 22 long rifles are shot by the billions across the planet every year. So who knows what remains to be seen. I think the idea is, with this 21 Sharp, they can make copper bullets much more easily and inexpensively than they could if it was for the 22 long rifle, because there you've got this step-down heel, a rebated base of the bullet to fit into the case. With the 21, you can use a full-size, full-diameter bullet all the way down into the case. And you can also make them longer, sharper, pointier for a higher ballistics coefficient, and that's what keeps their performance up there to the level of the old 40 grain standard bullet in the 22, because you can shoot them faster. The ones that I sampled in this blog I did were going 1,800 feet per second. That was a 25 grain copper bullet. So if you're starting out and you don't own a 22 yet, you might want to look at a 21 as an option, because they are also making lead bullets for it where those are legal, and it outshoots the 22 long rifle. Okay, Owen. Just changed barrels, he says. Yeah, by the time you pay for the new barrel and pay a gunsmith to change them, you've got more money invested in that thing than buying the gun. Well, good point, Joe, or Owen. Just buy a new gun, if you prefer. What I was saying about this is that because the 21 Sharp is based on the same case as the 22 long rifle, it just has a slightly narrower bullet, you need a slightly narrower bore. So your barrel should be a 21 caliber instead of a 22. So you could still use it on the action. For instance, a Ruger 1022. The barrels just clamp on there real simply. So you can take a barrel off, put a different barrel on. Since they're using the same chamber and everything, I would think you could just get a barrel in a 21 to fit the 21 Sharp and put that on, and bingo, there you go. So someone who has a 1022 could have two You could have your standard 22, swap the barrels, and now you've got a 21 sharp. But of course, people are going to say, well, it costs money for a new barrel. Everything costs money, guys. If you want to play the game, you got to pay the price. But good point, Owen. If you do not want to spend any money, just keep shooting your 22. Only don't do it in California and Oregon and Minnesota and all the rest of them. All right, Martin, what do you have to tell us? You never know what catches on. Now, Winchester has to shell out some money to get the gun writers and the gun publications in their pocket, or maybe some popular gun YouTubers build up the 21 sharp. Okay, so Martin is complaining because Winchester is now going to try to market its product. Well, welcome to America. Of course they are. Everybody does. So this is the attitude that I don't quite understand, that people are harping about gun makers and ammo makers coming up with new products for us. Does everybody want all these companies to go broke? I hope Winchester keeps making and selling ammunition, and Winchester and Browning keep making and selling rifles, and everybody else who's in this, because I enjoy shooting. I enjoy rifles and hunting, and I need those products. I don't want these companies to go broke. So I hope they go successfully market their new products. Whether you buy them or not is up to you. This is freedom, folks. You get to buy anything you want or ignore anything you want. But I don't think you need to root for these companies failing. You hope that they don't sell any products anymore? Good. They'll go out of business and you won't be able to buy any ammunition for your old 32 Special. Just doesn't make any sense to me. All right, Jay. Whoa, slow down, Ron. Don't you think we should find out first why we can't get ammo for our new Savage rifles in Winchester Super Mag that we bought in good faith before we fall for the new ammo and a new rifle? That said, you slipped down or up a line on your energy calculations. They're virtually the same at 60 yards, only a 3 foot-pounds of energy difference between the 22 and the 21 sharps. Then the momentum of the heavier bullet takes over in the energy department. But the drop, that's where the lighter pointed bullet shines, right? JW or J. Not quite sure what Jay's driving at here other than he just chewing me out for getting a number wrong on that chart. But I think if you look at that video and the chart, you will see that the 21 sharp 25 grain bullet pretty much hangs in there with the 40 grain long rifle out of the 22, which surprised me, but it's the extra velocity. So your 22 is going at around 1,200 feet per second in your standard load, whereas that 21 sharps, the box of ammo said it should go 1,700. I got them going more than 1,800. The average was something like 1,790, and that enables that lighter bullet with its higher ballistics coefficient to hang on to more energy downrange, and I forgot where it was, something at 70, 75 yards. The two are exactly equal in energy. So you should get real similar performance in your drops and your drifts and energy. I think it'll just be darn effective on small game. But people who shoot it are going to tell us. I haven't had the opportunity to shoot it at anything but paper targets so far. But again, folks, if you don't like this stuff, just ignore it. You don't have to cheer for it to become obsolete and for these ammo companies to fail. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's see what the team...
Ron, I think they're responding, Winchester is responding to the need in these states that have outlawed lead bullets.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think that's
whether you agree with that their policy or not. There are a lot of people in California, Oregon, and Minnesota.
Yeah, there you go. And this is, I say kudos to Winchester for producing this because they're answering a need. I know most of us don't get it. What do we need this for? You see that, you read that a lot. Well, what you need is an option. If you're in California, you like to hunt ground squirrels, your 22 is no longer legal, what do? Give it up? Take up golf instead? So Winchester said, okay, guys, we get it. You need something. What can we engineer that's going to work? And they came up with this 21 sharp. I think that's great. That's kind of what I want our gun and ammunition companies to do, is to provide us what we need. So if you don't need it, you don't have to run it down. Just ignore it.
Or move out of California.
Now there is a popular alternative. We see plenty of that. Oh my gosh, Texas and Idaho and everywhere. It's just like Californians are fleeing taking their companies with them and everything else. So, yeah, if things get too crazy for you, you can always leave. All right, in Michigan, we have Ben. Dear Mr. Spomer, I like that, Mr. Spomer. I am a Michigan hunter who is interested in hunting the West for big game. You're not the only one, buddy. I have made 2 trips west, and I have hunted for mule deer in Colorado and black bear in Idaho. Well, but on both of those trips, I had hunting partners. Finding partners for the future trips is getting to be a challenge. My main hunting buddies have recently started their families, and although I am thrilled for them and their healthy new babies, I will have to go hunting in the West without partners. So I'm in my mid-30s. I've taken many trips into the wilderness by myself, including some time in grizzly country, but I've never done it during the fall. I would like to hear your opinion on hunting solo in grizzly country. Betsy's shaking her head. Don't do it. I would like to hunt mule deer in southwest Montana next fall, and I intend to do the trip solo. I plan on hunting the backcountry and being away from the truck for several days. I recently read that grizzly bear habits begin to change in the fall during hunting season, and they begin feeding and searching and responding to hunters and gunshots and all that stuff. You got it, Ben. And especially in the area you're talking about, that anything around Yellowstone Park where the core grizzly population is, they're expanding out from the park quite a bit now, and they have figured out that there's meat available in the fall when hunters are around. Bow hunters in particular. There were, 3 kids bow hunting earlier this year up on the Idaho-Montana border, and they got charged and bitten up by a grizzly bear. And it seems like it happens every year, and every once in a while somebody gets killed by one. So it is not wise to be hunting solo in grizzly country. That said, you're certainly free to do it. I mean, I used to hunt all over this area by myself, but the grizzly population has grown since then, and they've seemed to have become more and more aggressive. So, boy, if you're going to do it, oh my gosh, I really wouldn't recommend just carrying some bear spray with you. Folks have been saying, how much of this is true, I don't know, but they've been saying spray works great to deter a curious bear, but not a determined bear. If it knows there's meat there and it's coming in to get it and running you off, or if you've shot an elk and you're coming back for your second load of meat and a grizzly has found it and you step into that mess, oh boy, you've got an angry grizzly and he's not going to slow down because of some pepper spray, most likely. So you're going to need a significantly powerful handgun, I'm afraid. But even if you have that, who's going to be watching your back? You're down there working on that elk and that grizzly comes up behind you. You don't have time. There have been plenty of guys who were doing that. They had their rifles propped up right there, anticipating something like that. But by the time they figured out it was happening, they didn't have time to even reach for the rifle. I think you're going to have to find yourself a hunting partner or risk being attacked by a grizzly bear. Best I can tell you, buddy. Good luck. Let's go to New South Wales, Bailey. G'day, Ron. Recently acquired my very first deer rifle. Well, good for you. I had my heart set on a Tikka T3X Lite in .308 Winchester. Much to your joy, I made a last-second decision in the store to get the .270 Winchester instead. Attaboy, Bailey. You're my man. You're going to love it. My question is this. I will be looking to reload for the .270 in the future, and I'd love to hear what you're recommended as far as a projectile and the weight. I only intend to hunt deer, occasionally goats and pigs if I run into them out on the hunt. Look forward to hearing back from you. Cheers, mate. Bailey. Well, Bailey, you are going to be able to hunt your goats and pigs and deer and even red stags easily with the same load in this .270 Winchester. I would not hesitate to use a 130 grainish bullet in a controlled expansion format now. Let's say any of the copper bullets and that open up nicely with those nice hollow noses. I've had great luck with those, and I've been saying over and over again, people are probably getting sick of it, but these hammer bullets I've been using are not only terminal performance is outstanding, but I seem to be able to get about 100 feet per second more velocity without excessive pressure in my hand loads with those bullets. They're just so sleek and slippery and minimal friction against the bore or something, but it's just really impressive stuff. So I'm really high on those. Barnes TTSX bullets just always seem to be super accurate in anything I try as well. But any of the controlled expansion bullets that you like are going to work quite well. 130 to 140 grain, that'll more than do the job. I have used 130 grain bullets in a 270 to cleanly take elk, as long as you place your shots properly. So that's what I would recommend. You're going to use, obviously, the bullet that you like and the one that shoots the best in this rifle. But given what I've seen and heard about Tikka, you're going to have accuracy no matter what. Now, if you're one of these hunters who thinks a heavier bullet is what you need, there's nothing wrong with a 150 grain bullet in the 270. Traditionally, we would choose those for the bigger animals like elk because of the increased potential for better penetration. But that was kind of back in the cup and core days. And with these new controlled expansion bullets, I really don't think it's necessary. I like the idea of keeping my velocity up on that 270. But then there's the wind deflection thing. And if you're hunting where there's a lot of big winds and you want to minimize your wind deflection, the higher BC bullet, at whatever velocity, is going to do that. So there's another reason you might want the 150. I've always considered the 140 grain as a great compromise between the two. Sorry I couldn't just specify one specific bullet, but I don't think it would be fair to you to say that, because plenty of them work, and you're going to find one that just seems to ring your bell, and you're going to love it. So great luck with that, Bailey. Thanks for writing in. Tim from Washington. Being a farm boy, Ron, I started hunting early, and I've taken deer, bear, and elk with a rifle, 7.57 Mauser. I wanted more of a challenge, so I switched to archery, and I have bow hunted for the past 30 years. But I'm now 65 with bad knees, and I've decided to go back to rifle hunting. My brother recently gave me his rifle, a 7.61 Sharpen Heart, but it has an ungodly scope made for target shooting on it. What size scope would you recommend for shooting out to 400 yards? And the bullet weights for mule deer, whitetail, black bear, and elk. Whew. Okay, the 7.61 Sharpen Heart is essentially the 7-rem mag. This was made back in the 1950s before the Remington came out in 1962. And it looked like it was going to be a pretty hot product, but they ended up having the rifles made Sharpen Heart, were the guys that invented this cartridge, but they had the rifles made over in Sweden, I think. So they were not as easily available or obtainable as the Remington. So once the Remingtons came out in 62 in the Model 700, 7-rem mag, 7.61 Sharp kind of went away in a hurry. But if you've got one, works just great. The scope. I find that on my 7 millimeters or anything similar that has that kind of range, a 10x scope is all you need. My wife hates it when I say this, but it's true. 10 power magnification. I have taken sheep out to 400 yards with a 7 power scope. I have taken 6x scopes and shot game at 350, 400 yards. But you have to train, you have to get used to it and understand it. I don't like to crank things up, even though I have some scopes that go all the way up to 18 power. In fact, I have one on my 7-rem mag right now. I rarely use it because when you fire, you lose your sight picture, so you don't get to see your hits. Now, admittedly, with a 7-rem, you generally have enough recoil that you're coming off and not seeing the hit anyway. But it doesn't help to have such a narrow field of view from a high magnification. So I try to keep things down where I'm seeing more area around the animal during the shot, and I can see where that bullet strikes, how the animal reacts when it's hit. And that's important stuff. And that's why I say 10x is probably all you need to reach out to 500, even 600 yards. And I don't recommend shooting that far either. So there's always kind of qualifiers in these things. But I think you'll find that a scope in the 3 to 10 range, or 2.5 to 12 maybe, is going to be smaller, easier to pack around and carry, lighter, makes for a handier rifle, and really will do all you need it to do. And you won't be tempted to have that thing cranked up so high that you end up jumping an animal at 50 yards and you're set at 18x or 15x and you can't even find him in the scope. I think more game has been lost to that than the inability to get on target because your power wasn't high enough at long range. So that's my recommendation. So I would stick with a 1-inch tube unless you're planning it to do a lot of dialing. This idea that your 30 millimeter tubes or even your 34 are going to give you a lot brighter image is not true in most cases, because the internal lenses are small enough that it really doesn't make much difference. The brightness is going to be determined by the anti-reflection coatings on the lenses and the diameter of the objective lens divided by the magnification you set. Another reason not to go too much power on it, because at 18x, you're going to get a tiny little exit pupil coming out of the eyepiece, and that makes for a darker image. Whew, we could go on and on about optics, but you can check some of my videos explaining all of that stuff on Ron Spomer Outdoors or a regular channel on YouTube. So there's your scope, and now I would keep that objective lens at about 42, maybe 44 millimeter at the most. And that's going to do just fine as long as it gets fully multi-coated lenses. All the lens surfaces are multi-coated. That's maximum brightness. Great. Now bullet weights. Mule deer, whitetail, blacktail in 7. Took my last elk with 139 grain LRX Barnes all copper bullet, 418 yards or 11 yards or something like that. Bingo. One shot kill. I gave him another shot when he turned around, but I really didn't need to because he was essentially dead on his feet. So a light bullet can work if it's a controlled expansion. Now you're going to get great velocity and flat trajectory that way, but not so much on your wind deflection. There you want a heavier bullet with a higher BC. So if you've got a lot of wind where you hunt and you're worried about the windage and that bullet blowing or deflecting off course, go with 160. I think the 160 to 168 grain range is probably optimum in a 7 rem mag. Not too heavy, not too light, good compromise all the way around. Then you want to go with some kind of a controlled expansion. Accubons, Swift Sirocco, there's a whole bunch of them out there. If you want to go the all copper route like I prefer, you've got plenty to choose from. Gosh, there are well over a dozen companies making great copper bullets these days. So you might want to check into those. But yeah, for whitetail, mule deer, black bear, elk, 150 grain bullets, 160 grain, 140, it really doesn't make all that much difference. The type of bullet and where you park it, that's what matters. So, boy, I think you're going to do well with that 761 Sharp and Harp. Sharp and Heart, not harp. You don't want to be playing a harp when you're shooting a Sharp and Heart. Luke from Idaho. I really enjoy listening to your podcast and watching you on YouTube. I appreciate your insights and your wealth of knowledge. I have a Winchester Model 70 Extreme Weather that I have rebarreled with a Proof Research 22-inch carbon fiber in 280 Ackley. A lot of guys going to that 280 Ackley improved. I've hunted with this for a few years, but I'd like to buy a nice lightweight hunting stock, and I'm having trouble finding a good stock for the Winchester action. This rifle is my go-to lightweight mountain rifle. I shoot suppressed, and I would like to cut weight. Appreciate your insights and suggestions. Ooh, Luke, you shouldn't have trouble finding a lightweight stock. There's so many good stock makers out there now that are making those. I haven't really been paying a lot of attention. AG Composites, I think, is putting out some pretty lightweight aftermarket stocks that should fit. But if you look at, oh, golly, Macmillan and how many are out there? I don't even pay that much attention anymore because I'm mostly buying rifles that are already stocked the way I like them. But if you just do some research on lightweight synthetic stocks, I don't think you're going to have problems finding one for a Model 70. I mean, that's pretty common stuff. So whether it's an all carbon or one of the synthetic Kevlar fiberglass layup types, gosh, you should find one. I know Lex Webernick. I don't know if he sells his stocks without the whole rifle. He's a custom rifle builder down in Texas. Rifles Inc. He makes a fiberglass Kevlar stock that weighs 11 ounces before he puts on the rubber recoil pad and the sling studs and everything. They come in at about, I think, 13 ounces when they're finished. Whoa, this is a super lightweight stock. I have one on my 280 AI. It's fitted to a Model 700 action, but he also makes his lightweight rifles with the Winchester 70 action. So he'll have the stocks that fit it. Just give him a call or check it out, Rifles Inc., and see if you can't get a stock there. That would be a great option. Hey, this is Roy from Colorado. Hey, I'm writing in regards to your comments on bear protection. I completely understand your stance on bigger hardcast bullets and fast acquisition of a sight picture. My question is your stance on the AR-style weapons for protection. You may not be able to get a ton of shots off in defense, I get that, but I think you overlook the big bores like the 450 Bushmaster, the 458 SOCOM, and the 50 Beowulf. I personally own a 458 SOCOM, and it loves bullets from 350 to 500 grains. Just a thought, I know they aren't as prevalent, but I feel that they offer the biggest punch that you were talking about. So let's face it, you're not winning any long-range competitions, but I feel that for close shots, it's a wise option. I love what you do, and I'm an avid listener to your podcast, and I watch your YouTube channel often. Hunt honest and shoot straight, and God bless from Colorado. Well, thanks, Roy. Oh, here's the P.S. I wrote you a while back asking about rifle choice for big game for a new youth hunter. I'm thinking 7mm 08 or 270. Just curious what your thoughts are. PSSS 25-06 rules. Well, you love the 25-06, but for the youth hunter, you're thinking 270. I don't know, that 25-06 is a pretty good option. Same length as the 270, but you're shooting lighter bullets. They're going pretty darn fast. I would lean toward that. But if you want a short action, which kind of helps with a younger shooter, gets a little bit shorter rifle, could be a little bit lighter, nicer balance, 7mm 08 is sweet. But a 260 Remington is another great option. If you hand load, I would go that route, the 708. But gosh, if you're shooting factory loads, you almost have to go with a 6.5 Creedmoor for a lot of choices. You just don't find that much ammunition easily with a lot of choices in 708 or 260 Remington. 270, yeah, there's still plenty of that out there. That's one of the top 3 deer cartridges out there. So you're not going to go wrong with any of those. But good point about that 450 Bushmaster and 58 SOCOM and the Beowulf and all those. A lot of guys are saying that. They just love their ARs. And everybody knows I'm not an AR guy. I've shot them, I've hunted with them a little bit, but I just have never really absorbed those things and gotten comfortable with them. But a lot of people who do say that they can whip them into action quickly. And yeah, they don't need a 30-round magazine or a 20-round magazine or maybe even a 10. And as I always say, when a bear attacks you, you're lucky to get 3 shots off with anything. But still, if you can get a 350 to 500 grain bullet coming out of one of these, and all you have to do is pull the trigger repeatedly, and it reliably functions, and all the rest of it, yeah, it should be a great option. So don't just take my word for it, guys. If you really know your ARs and you feel that they are as fast as a handgun, a revolver, or even a lever action 45-70 like so many bear people like for protection, if you can get more accurate shots on target quickly with your AR, those cartridges are certainly able to do the job with the right hard bullet. Okay, good tips there, Roy. Gage from Pennsylvania. Howdy, Ron. I'm writing from South Central Pennsylvania. I have a question. I would like your input. I inherited a Winchester Model 70 and 6mm 284. Wow, that's a custom job there. That was never a commercial cartridge, but it's a fast one. I have come to find that there seems to be little information on this Wildcat. The previous owner had put together different hand loads meant for whitetail here in PA. I'm wanting to take it out west for mule deer and pronghorn. The question I have for you, sir, is what should I look for in an efficient round that would be suitable for what those critters would require? More specifically, what grain and type of bullet would be best for those hunts? Currently, in Pennsylvania, I hunt with a 7mm 08, and it has yet to fail or disappoint me. However, all of my shots have been sub 150 yards. Hornady has a fairly good PDF with different bullet types and grains for the 6mm, ranging from 58 grains up to 105. However, I have no idea what would be best suited for Western hunts, and I don't want to confuse my experiences here in PA with what might be necessary out west. I want to get good hand loaded, figured out, so I can take this sentimental rifle on a few more hunts. Thank you for taking the time to respond. I'm an avid listener, and I enjoy watching your YouTube channel as well. Keep up the great stuff. Well, thanks, Gage. Hey, you're going to do just fine with your 6mm, and I'm guessing whatever you've already loaded up there in Pennsylvania, unless it's a round-nosed bullet. But, of course, the 6mm are famous for being really flat shooters, so you've got plenty of range with them. With that 284, that's a 284 Winchester neck down to 6mm. You've got a little more powder. You're getting pretty close to the 30-06 or the 25-06 neck down to 24 caliber. In a shorter case. It's the short fat version. So you're going to have your velocities up there at 32, 3,300 feet per second with a 90 to 100 grain bullet, I would guess. Good options right there. Don't think you need a 105 grain bullet. If you've got the twist rate, though, to stabilize those longer high BC bullets, sure, you're going to get your advantages in your wind deflection with that. But as far as killing the animal, your 80, 90 grain, 100 grain bullets are going to work if it's the right bullet. Once again, controlled expansion bullets. With pronghorn, you can have a quite frangible bullet. They're fairly light, small animals. Really no challenge there. I would look really hard at something in that 85 to 100 grain length in an all copper bullet. But if you like the lead core controlled expansion bullets, you could look into something like that 105. And I think they're even up to 108 grains now on some of these things. But you got to have the twist rate to handle those. But you should do just fine with that stuff. And there are some guys who will use a good controlled expansion bullet in something like that 6.5 284 for elk. But again, you got to pick your shots, put them just in the right place. All right, good luck with that. Let me know how that turns out for you and what sort of velocities you're getting. I've taken quite a few deer and mule deer, whitetails, and pronghorn with the 6mm Remington and the 243 Winchester, but I've not had the chance to shoot that 6mm 284. That would be sweet. All right, Brian from Alaska. I've heard some of your podcasts where you talk about lead fragmentation in the meat, and you also talk about how great the hammer bullets are, with the tip of the hammer bullet breaking off extremely sharp chunks of copper that you can be eating. Just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that. Yeah, you could bite into a piece of that. They're pretty tiny little fragments that come peeling off of there, but I have seen them tear tissue well away from the core of that main bullet path. And that helps rip some tissue and cause some more hemorrhaging. But yeah, what if that little piece stays in the meat and you bite into it? It's not going to poison you. You might bite into it and break a tooth or something, but you're not going to suffer from copper poisoning the way you would from lead poisoning. That's kind of the main concern there. I have not had that happen yet. I have found polymer tips in my meat. I found plenty of lead in my meat and some gilding metal jackets that were around the lead core. Found some of those in my meat. So I don't think this is a heck of a lot difference. Yeah, but you're only going to have three or four pieces. I forget how many petals are on one. I think it's 4. Yeah, there's 4 on the hammer bullets. But something to think about, but I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I have yet to bite into a chunk of one of those. All right, Spencer from Nevada. Small correction on the weapon and the person at Adobe Wells. It was Billy Dixon, and he used a 45-90, and it was the medicine man that he hit after that man said he would never be hit because of his magic. Well, I heard that several ways now. There was really nobody there. The Indians were out on the hill. Was it a mile away that he'd made this shot? Crazy shot. The Indians had these... I think they were buffalo hunters, surrounded in a little adobe hut. So there was this battle going on for quite a while. And the Indians withdrew at a distance to plan their next attack, I suppose. And this one buffalo hunter, I always forget if it's Billy Dixon or Nixon, but this gentleman here says it was Dixon. He decides to launch one way out there. And the Indians were, of course, thinking there's no way they can hit us at this distance. Some say it was a chief. Some say they didn't even know who they hit. There's just one of them fell over. But if you say he was a medicine man, we'll go with that. At any rate, that ended the battle at Adobe Wells, was it, or Walls? I think you're going to clear me in on that one here, too. So when the others saw him fall, long before the repeat of the gun was even heard, oh well. So I purchased a replica of this rifle by Pedersoli at the Billy Dixon some time ago, and alas, due to some issues I've had, not much chance to use it. Item 2. Please read Nevada Department of Wildlife seasons and times, and maybe you will see that anti-hunters' fingerprints are on it. The deer hunting seasons and times were spread out from August to December and into January with any legal weapon from October through December, and I think, but I've never hunted into January. I know I have hunted Nevada for over 35 years, and this smacks of trying to drive hunters away. They have made almost all of the season in October 1 to November 5, as well as elk hunting. But read for yourself. I've contacted Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and Safari Club International to see what they can do about this Oh, and also they're restricting guides to a finite amount of time. Some hunters may never be served and they lose their once in a lifetime hunt. Oh my goodness. And even today, with the past temperatures from the 60s to 80s, it's hard for hunters to get out and hunt during this season. Oh my gosh. Huh. So basically, Spencer is complaining about the season dates that they have, and he thinks it's the anti-hunters. Now, there could be some anti-hunting pressure on the fish and game agencies. This is increasingly happening. Seen it a lot in Colorado. And years ago, someone found kind of a manifesto or some directions that the anti-hunters laid out. If we want to stop hunting, we need to get an influence on the state fish and game commissions. We need anti-hunters to be on there. We got to figure out how to do that. Also, they suggested that anti-hunting young people go to school to become biologists and get jobs working for the fish and game agencies, and they could undercut things that way. And so it is a real issue. How bad it is right now, I don't know, but it's certainly not something that you should ignore. So that might be part of it. The other part about these seasons being set early when it's hot out and it's not the rut and it's a hard time to hunt and all the rest of it, I think it could simply be Fish and Game trying to provide optimum opportunities for people to go hunting while minimizing the chance of them taking too much game. If you want to take, say, 100 elk out of an area, you could offer 100 tags and hope that everybody got one, and then you meet your objective. Or you could sell 1,000 tags and hold the season at the time of year when it's least likely that anybody's going to get one, and then maybe you did 1,000 hunters would only kill 100 deer. And Fish and Game sells a lot of licenses, which is not something to poo-poo either, because they need money to hire biologists and game wardens and do all the other work that they do. They do great work for us, and they've got to get the money someplace. Personally, I would rather have the hunting seasons be open and I can get a tag than make it the absolute best time of year to kill a trophy buck, but there's only 2 tags available and I don't get one. I would rather go out and be hunting. So all of these things play into it. I don't know what's going on in Nevada, Spencer. You've got a much better feel for it. But if any of you are complaining about the way Fish and Game sets its regulations, get in touch with that agency. I have never found Fish and Game agencies to be belligerently anti-hunting or belligerent about any of the things that I ask them. They'll sit down and they'll visit with you and explain what they're doing. I mean, you're paying their wages. It's a government agency that works for you. So you've got every right to go in and say, how come you set this season at such a crazy time? Or how come you have too many tags or too few tags or whatever it is you have to gripe about? They're used to hearing gripes.
We just met a very nice Fish and Game warden the other day on my deer.
Yeah. Betsy had shot a deer that was infected, and we didn't think the meat was edible, but we wanted to find out what's going on with this thing. It was really unusual. And I called Fish and Game and said, I might have a sick deer. I don't know if it's got some kind of a contagious disease or what. Can you check it out? Well, we'll send somebody out. By golly, within, an hour, 2 hours, here comes the game warden. And he looks at the deer and says, this is gross and disgusting, and I don't know what it is. I've never seen anything like it. But I wouldn't eat it, and we'll give you another tag. Now, that's pretty nice stuff, offering you another tag when my wife has already shot this nice deer. We didn't take the tag because we don't want to shoot too many deer off the place. We're trying to build the population up. So he said, no, that's okay. I've got some tags in other places, and I'll get an elk or a deer or something. And Betsy's trying to make a cow elk hunt with a friend here. So we didn't shoot another deer, but it was nice of them to offer. To me, his demeanor, the way he treated this whole thing, was just a credit to the agency and his job. And over the years, I've found and met and interacted with several game wardens that did not fit the old mold of the nasty game warden, was out to get you no matter what, and was just not friendly or anything. These guys did public relations beautifully while doing their job and taking care of the resource. So I'm a big supporter of Fish and Game agencies. They've got a hard row to hoe because everybody's going to gripe about something. It's either they're selling too many tags or not enough tags, or the season's too short, too long, or something. So they get it from all sides. I think they do a pretty good job of balancing things out. But yeah, do pay attention though, because these anti-hunters can get in there and do their nasty work. and we've got to always keep their feet to the fire. And I like to base all of this stuff as much on biology as I can and not politics. But boy, politics always play a role. Martin from Ottawa, Ontario. Wow. Good day, Ron. Love your show and how you're able to really get down to the nitty-gritty of cartridges and hunting in general. I am really hoping to get your advice on whether or not it would be a good idea to change my rifle. I'm an avid hunter, and I target deer, bear, and if I can, I get a moose tag. My bucket list hunt includes western elk, and maybe one day head down to Texas for something completely different. I also enjoy some one-on-one time with my son by heading out to the range and just shooting targets. I currently have a Browning X-Bolt in 30-06, but I'm finding that I can't get my groups down under an inch and a half at 100 yards. I've tried multiple different powders and bullet combinations. I am a handloader, but I just can't seem to find a load that this gun likes, and I'm tightening up those groups. For reference, I have a 6.5 Creedmoor that I'm currently able to shoot half-inch groups with. I have shot a friend's 300 Win Mag at 3/4-inch groups with that, so I don't believe it's my technique. Hey, I'm with you on this one. I get a lot of grief from people for the lousy groups I shoot, and they all think I don't know how to shoot. It's me. It's my problem. And some of them even got me to thinking maybe it is my problem. But then I'll get a rifle that really shoots well, and I'll shoot half-inch groups like I did the other day with my Park West Arms single-shot SD10 beautiful rifle. I got a .45-inch group, I think it was, with 3 shots of Winchester PowerPoint factory ammunition. Ha ha, take that, naysayers. But I hear you. It's frustrating when you have a rifle that doesn't shoot. And I am currently working with a 300 Win Mag rifle that is just not giving me good groups. 1.5 inches at best, sometimes 2 inches. I'll get 2 shots just right there, almost touching, and then one will drop 2 or 3 inches. So it's frustrating, but I'm just starting to work with this thing. Sounds like you've been after yours for a while. You never mentioned seating depth, so try that. That seems to have a bigger effect than changing powders. Just seat your bullet at different depths and try to find it. Another thing you can try is this silly de-resonator or rubber ring thing from Limb Saver. This looks goofy and it sounds kind of funny, but the basic principle is changing the vibrations of your barrel. So Limb Saver, that's the name of the company. I think it's the same name. I got one years and years and years ago, and it would reduce your group size, cut it in half. All it is a rubber bumper sort of thing that slides over the barrel nice and tightly, and you move it up and down until you get your best groups. It absorbs those vibrations, and it really works. Like I say, it looks goofy, but boy, it doesn't shoot goofy. So that's something you consider. Also, you could try a suppressor. I have found that putting a suppressor on rifles changes the balance of the barrel and such, and it improves accuracy most of the time. So something else you could try. Beyond that, Betsy says, wrap it up. You're going too long. You could go on forever about how to make your rifle shoot better. Try those things and get back to me and see if that doesn't work for you, Martin, because that rifle should shoot. Generally, those Brownings are known to be excellent, accurate rifles. Right, that's it. We've gone long again, guys. Forgive me. Chew me out if I'm going too long on all these. I know so many of you like to fall asleep to them, so it's probably useful to have it going over an hour.
Hey, Ron, I almost fell asleep.
You almost fell asleep? Yeah, so did I this time for some reason. I don't know why. I'm just kind of sleepy. Hey, we need to ring a bell and wake somebody up. Hey, guy. Yes, it's the dog show. Betsy always brings that dog up here, and every time we ring that bell, that thing goes nuts. Well, wake up, everybody. It's time for comment of the week. Sorry if you were sleeping. Our comment of the week, Betsy insists, has to go to Ben from Michigan, who's thinking of coming out west in grizzly country and hunting alone. And she is strictly against that. Betsy fears grizzly bears. She's pretty smart that way. I have spent a lot of time hunting in grizzly country, but it is not the wise thing to do. These bears can be quite aggressive, and during hunting season, they seem to become more aggressive. They know meat is available, and they don't care if it has 4 legs or 2. So, thanks for bringing that up, Ben, and thanks for being smart enough to consider that. I am all for solo hunting. I have done a lot of it over my career. I still do it in safe areas just because of the, what would you call it, honey? The spiritual side of hunting, I think.
I think you are solely responsible for yourself. You have no other body to depend on.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it's also you get to interact with nature as a hunter on your own terms without worrying about your partners. Or, is it time to go in? Maybe everybody else wants to head in. It's getting late, it's getting cold, or maybe it's windy and they're not having fun. I don't want to be thinking about other people. I just want to think about all the things that I think about when I'm hunting. Sometimes it's how can I outwit this creature, but other times it's, oh my gosh, look at how beautiful that tree is. Oh, that is just, what a privilege to be out here hunting in this gorgeous environment. I don't see another sign of human being anywhere but my own footprints, all that sort of stuff. It's just wonderful to hunt by yourself. Not all the time. I love hunting with my buddies, sometimes even significant parties of hunters. It's just a whole different dynamic. But I can understand why people would want to solo hunt. Just don't do it in dangerous bear country. I don't think it's worth the risk. So thanks for asking those questions, Ben, and getting us all thinking. That's it. Hunt honest and shoot straight. And be sure to ring a bell when you want your dogs to bark or you want to wake up.